What I've got here is this beautiful Ninja 636, and in this video we'll do some geometry with blind spots and mirror setup. What's behind me is a row of extremely ugly cardboard with spray paint on it, and this is how it works. Every foot or every 30 centimeters I changed color. I alternated silver and black. I know the silver doesn't quite work on the cardboard, but it'll work. Behind the bike, directly here, is a vertical silver line, and that's a point of reference. Also notice features on the wall, because we're going to see them in a distance. Here where the hose hangs, there's that piece of plastic on the wall, and then from the middle where the tail of the bike is, I started measuring at 6 feet that way, and I have a double black line, and 6 feet the other way, and I have another black line, because that's the width of the average lane. And in this particular scenario, we'll just assume a center lane position for riding. Okay, I know sometimes you can go a left lane position or you can go a right lane position, but just for geometry we're gonna do center. Okay, and what's behind the double black line, that would indicate the solid yellow line or white line or what have you on the road that separates one lane from the other lane. There's the next lane, 1 foot, 2 foot, 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 feet, plus a little more. Like I said, it's 12 feet for a lane. I don't have any more cardboard that would go there. And on this side I have the same situation. Here is the double black line that separates a lane from another, and I have the first 6 feet marked, and we start here at point blank range. Let's sit on the bike, and I'm gonna advance down that general direction over the curb and the ramp and everything. So I'll tell you how my mirrors are set up. First off, I gotta put my hands on the handlebar, and first off, the mirrors I rotate so that the headlights of vehicles are shown in it in the longest dimension on the mirror. So from here to about there, I want to see the headlights of other road users behind me. I don't want to see the roofs of the vehicles behind me, because they are not prominent and not bright enough. The roof, the edge of the roof, is actually very thin and hard to notice. I don't want to see the glass of the vehicle, because you can see through it. It's hard to catch. I want to see the biggest, brightest feature that is around me, and that's the headlights and the front grille of the vehicles. Same on the other side. Just rotate it slightly so that I have a nice view of the headlights following me and being around me. Now, if I do a shoulder check at this point, that's what I see. There can be a vehicle in the next lane, and I need to mind my space margin. Your shoulder check typically is 90 degrees. This would be 90 degrees from dead out, from straight on to at 90 degrees. You gotta cover at least this much with your shoulder check, possibly a little more, and I'll explain why with the blind spots. Same on the other side. There's your 90-degree shoulder check. You don't want to pull in front of anybody that close either. Oh, I gotta fix that cardboard there. Just give me a sec. There. That'll hold. So there's the edge of the lane. Okay, let's go riding. Okay, first off, your elbows are always going to be in the mirror. There's no meaningful way of getting rid of the elbows from your mirror. Well, you can if you rotate this mirror all the way out there, but what you do see in the mirror in this particular situation is you don't see much of. You can see the next lane there. Where's my hand? There's the lane divider, and you can see what's in the next lane. That's good, but I also want to see a little bit what's behind me. And I set up the mirrors that way. You can see the numbers 2 and 4 behind me, and that number 2 is that number 2, and the edge of the cardboard is here. So that's on that side. Just keep those numbers in mind. And on this side you also see the number 2 next to my elbow, and the number 4. So what that translates to is that between that number 2 and that number 2 you don't see anything. So you have a blind spot that's about 2 feet wide, that's directly behind you, maybe 3 feet wide. So a person standing there could hide or could remain unnoticed. Now usually that's important in a parking lot. Okay, in a parking lot, if you want to back out from somewhere, a mirror check is not enough. A shoulder check is not going to cover enough ground. If you want to know if there's a kid or a grandma just stopped there behind you with a shopping cart or something, first off, the shopping cart is lower than the headlight of the vehicle. You gotta do a full 180 because you don't have a rear view mirror on a bike. Okay, that's the only way you can see if there's a grandma or a pedestrian or a kid or something tying a shoelace. Okay, let's advance another, I don't know, 6 or 8 feet forward, and let's take a look at the numbers again. And please also notice that you have only the 2 and the 4 in the mirror, and you don't see any other vehicle in the next lane. You don't see the 6, and you don't see the double line, and you don't see anybody else. So you gotta cover that with your shoulder check. And if your shoulder check only goes 90 degrees, it's not enough. You gotta go beyond that, or you gotta set up your mirror that way. But again, it's also important that you kinda have a rear view mirror. That's why it's set up best this way. Okay, let's see what happens to the blind spot that's behind you and the other spot. Alright, in this position here where I'm directly over this curb and I'm about 8 feet away from the wall, that's what I see in the mirrors. The numbers are getting smaller, but I can see next to my elbow where the hose is hung up, or very nearly so. And yeah, that's for the hose reel. And you can see the numbers 2, 4, and 6 in the mirror clearly. You can also see the double vertical line there for the edge of the next lane, and you can see some more of the next lane, but not a whole lot beyond. And you might be able to catch a headlight of a big truck being close to the edge of the lane painting or lane line, but usually not. You gotta do a full a shoulder check and a little more to make sure there's nobody in that space, because your mirrors your mirrors aren't showing what's in that lane. Only if the mirrors are further rotated out, that's when they show you. But I do want to see what's behind me as well a little bit. Same on the other side. There's my elbow. We start with the number 4 and the number 6 there, so you don't see what's behind me between those numbers. I'm gonna get to it a little bit, and you can see the first number 2 there, so that's how much you can see from the next lane. So what's behind you between number 4 on that side and number 2 on that side, you have a 4 foot wide blind spot there. There, from that number 4, sorry, from that number 4 to that number 2, you don't have anything. So you don't see the number 3, the 2, the 1, the silver line, and the 1. So that's 4 feet of blind spot behind you. And it's gonna get wider and wider as we go further and further away from the line of cardboards. Okay, let's move ahead another 6 or 8 feet. So we are about 16, I don't know, 20 feet out from the wall. Let's take a look at the blind spots again. There we go. Let's see, what do we see? Well, we see the double black line there and the tree trunk, and you can see the edge of the building, and there's my elbow. Next to my elbow you can see the very small, if I tuck my elbow in, you can see the black numbers 2, 4 and 6. If I do this with my hand, goes out just a little bit, just yay much, then you can't see the number 2. You can only see the numbers 4 and 6, and they are super tiny. I recognize that, but you can clearly see the double black line. And then from the next lane you can see the black numbers 2 and 4. So you can see half the next lane, and you can see a vehicle in it. If there is one approaching, you can clearly see it. What you can cover with your shoulder check again is this 90 degrees. So far so good. And if there's any vehicles here in this space, you can kinda see them because they are not really behind you. Those are the numbers behind you, and those are the numbers next to you. You can kinda see it. So a 90-degree shoulder check is not quite enough. You gotta go a little more than that to make sure there's nobody in this space here around you in the next lane. Same on the other side. Same on the other side, but we have a road user here in this lane, and the edge of the vehicle here lines up with the double black line there. The double black line lines up with that crack in the concrete, and you can see that the edge of this vehicle and the bumper of this vehicle, even though it's not in the direction of travel away from the wall, but the edge of this vehicle is a good reference for another road user if there's a vehicle here next to you. Let's see what shows up in the rear view mirror about those numbers there. First thing you notice is that you don't see the car. You don't see any of this red car. And what you do see is the double black line there, very small. You can see the number 6 next to it, and the number 4 just next to my elbow. But if I move my elbow just a millimeter, then the number 4 is covered out with my elbow. And then again, you can see about 2, 4, 6 feet. You can see half the next lane. You can see one headlight in it. If there's one following this vehicle, the length of this vehicle would be, turned the other way around, would be about as wide as the parking lot plus the curb. So that would be the length of the vehicle. And quite frankly, you don't see any of that. In the rear view mirror, you got to do your shoulder check for it because they don't show up in the mirror. Let's go ahead another 6 or 8 feet, see what happens to the blind spots. Oh, one more thing. From this position is you have a blind spot. What's the width of the blind spot directly behind you? So I'm just covering out the number 4 there on that side, and I'm just covering out the number 2 on that side. So that means we have between number 4 there and number 2 there, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5, 6 feet. That's covered because the number 2 was just barely covered, and the number 4, if it's barely covered, if those numbers are covered, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 feet fully covered behind me. 6 feet is the width of any vehicle, so any vehicle that's directly following me you can't see if you have a distance of about 18-20 feet behind you. Okay, a full vehicle that's 6 feet wide can hide behind you with these numbers that you can clearly see. Okay, let's go ahead. The tendency will continue. The blind spot behind you, that's directly behind you, is going to just get wider and wider and wider. Alright, we're about 35 feet away from the wall, and there's another road user next to me in my blind spot or whatever in the next lane. Just pretend the road user is going this way. I just can't turn that car around, but its corner of it is going to be a good enough reference point, and there's another road user. Same situation, just pretend that this row of cars here, everybody is going that way as in a normal lane, okay? And let's see what's in the rear view mirror. Alright, first thing you notice, you can see the double black line there, very small feature there at the edge of the window, and depending on how I hold my elbow, you can't really see much next to it. You can see the last black number 6 next to it, where that's my lane, and then the next lane starts. You can see the full lane, whatever is coming in that lane, but I can't see what's behind me, anything, because my elbow and my body is covering it. And on this side, I don't see anything of that red car in my next lane. What I do see next to my elbow is maybe black numbers 4 and 6, and the double black line is there where the bump on the bush is, very small feature, and then you can see the whole next lane, the full width basically of the next lane, because a car can't possibly hide in it without being seen. Yeah, you can see the full 10, almost the full 10 feet. You can see 7 feet of it, so there is no car or vehicle that's 3 feet wide other than another motorcycle. And your shoulder check at this point should cover from here 90 degrees out, but that's not enough. You also need to discover this vehicle behind you that doesn't show up in your mirror, and if it's accelerating, it might be cutting into your space if you want to go and do a lane change. So you gotta really watch out for your shoulder checks. 90 degrees is not enough. You gotta see and find that vehicle in it. If you want to adjust your mirrors for the red vehicle to be in it, you can do so, but then you can't see what's behind you and who's following you. And the full width of the blind spot that is behind you, if my elbow is here and I can see the numbers 4 is just barely could be covered with the with my elbow super easily, but let's go with it. It's visible. So I got 4 on that side, and I've only got the number 6 in this one. So that means that in the wall here, I can't see anything from here all the way here, and that's 1 foot, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet of blind spot, because I had the 6 and I had the 4 on this side. So that's 8 feet of blind spot. A vehicle is narrower than 8 feet, and so a police car, whatever, you know, they can hide behind you. If they stay behind far enough, you don't have a chance of seeing it. Okay, let's go ahead a little further out and let's do one more last spot check. And now we're about 50 feet away from the wall, and we have one extra car there. That's good. We'll see what we can see of it in the rear view mirror, and that's where my bike is. The seat is lined up there, and let's see what we can discover about those vehicles in the mirror. First off, you can see that the red car is in it and the silver car is in it, but the white car isn't. This white car, absolutely nothing of it shows. Okay, so that's where my head is. That's what I see. There's my elbow in it, and my elbow is just covering the edge of the painted line there on the road. That would be at that feature on the bush, so it's just barely covering that. So I don't see anything from what's behind me on that side of the lane at all, but I see the full width of the other lane. However, a 90-degree shoulder check is not nearly enough, because this white car next to me is not in the mirror, and if I just do a 90-degree shoulder check, that's not enough. I need to do a little more to see this white car. Okay, I can see the silver car, but not the red car, and nothing from my lane on that side, and pretty much my elbow is just where the double vertical black line is, so I don't see anything from what's in my lane, but everything after that. So my lane now is completely filling my blind spot that's behind me. I can't see anything that's behind me, absolutely. And the line of sight for the headlight of the vehicles, that's still the same for both of these mirrors. That's still preserved, and so that's why the mirrors need to be set up this way for maximum visibility, so that you can see others in it. So that's how the tendency is for blind spots. Whatever is behind you, increasingly you will see less and less and less. Eventually, as you keep going further and further ahead, you won't see what's in your next lane left and right either. The blind spot behind you is getting wider and wider and wider. Now, you don't need to use your mirrors as a telescope. You just need to be able to minimize the blind spot that's behind you and next to you, so you can discover these vehicles. However, you still need to do a huge shoulder check, okay, if you're trying to use your mirrors as substituting partially for the rear view mirror. Alrighty, so that's about I had to say about that.